Okay. Continuing on with forgiveness. I said in the last video that forgiveness is the most instrumental thing in your life to bringing peace in your life, having proper perception, and being able to deduce what is real and what's not real in your life, and most of all, re-engineering the ego. Now, for someone like me, I consider this the age of discernment, and that kind of rubs me kind of wrong to say forgive everything and everyone in every situation, like give everyone a free pass. And I say this is the age of discernment because gaining consciousness in this day and age right now really involves being able to sort of unlearn a lot of the things we learned up into high school, or at least realizing that what we've learned in high school is not as black and white as what we learned it. That as adults, if we take a closer inspection of every situation in history and every institution today, that when you take a close look at them, there's layers of either fraud, lies, or it's just a very complex situation of what narrative really explains the truth. Now, unfortunately, most of us, or a lot of our people around us stop this thinking or this understanding at that high school level. Even through college, if they graduate through college, their critical thinking has stopped at high school, and they no longer challenge these notions, whatever it may be. Who killed JFK? What is health? So on and so forth. And that's unfortunate, because as adults, we should be challenging all of these beliefs, all of these notions, just to make sure which ones are ruling us wrongly and which ones are right. So, my concern is that discernment is not the opposite of forgiveness. I say the opposite of forgiveness is resentment or judgment or punishment. And, resentment kind of encompasses all of those, in the sense that you judge someone and you're punishing them, and you may be internalizing it, or whatever the case may be, but that's essentially what it is. And you guys might have a better opposite. And all of this stuff revolves around the idea of justice, in that you want justice. And this is a notion that's, that we hold very dear here in America, and maybe in all of Western culture. And to be honest with you, it's an archaic, draconian, barbaric, Old Testament concept. It's not enlightened thinking. It's not Christ consciousness. It's not Buddha consciousness. It's not Krishna consciousness. It's not any form of higher enlightened thinking whatsoever. I guess this might be his first. That's Luke. Anyways, so what it is draconian. It's eye for an eye. If you're looking for justice in your life, and that is all you want in your life, then essentially what you're saying is, I never want to be blameworthy. I always want to be innocent from the man, or whoever, your master is, whatever kind of being that might be. And, that's slave mentality. That's not elevated consciousness. That's primal thinking. And so this is not enlightenment in any sort of way. Thus, this is the opposite of discernment, or rather, this is the opposite of forgiveness. And so discernment, where does that relationship lie in with forgiveness? I say it is a byproduct of it. In other words, that to have good discernment, to be able to judge things correctly, you have to first be able to forgive things correctly. And there is sort of a depth to how well you're able to forgive things as you practice this more and more, in the sense that you kind of give it lip service when you first start it, because it's hard. You still hold that burning resentment as you try to forgive the situation and understand it better and better. But as you get better at forgiving things, you'll see a different depth that starts to grow. But understanding how this dynamic works, essentially, if you are judging something and something happens, or someone's coming up to you, and your ego is triggered and you give an egoic response, you're in response, okay? You're in reaction mode rather than conscious mode, right? You're not judging anything, you're in fight or flight mode. You're just judging fear, or you're in danger or not. It's on a very deep level of understanding thing, and basically you consider everything in your life possible danger. This is a horrible way to live, and you don't need to live this way. In grace, in this universe, there are many challenges, but you have to be able to put the security blanket around you by understanding. Let's not go down that road. Let's look at it at a different level. Anytime we are looking for some sort of ethical system or moral system, like as you study Kant or utilitarianism, any sort of moral system is going to be challenged by, I just got spooked by something, it spooked me out, but is going to be challenged by those extreme scenarios like Hitler's drowning. So whether it's Hitler already killed 6 million, millions of people, or will kill, and you have the chance to stop it, or you have the chance to provide revenge for those, will you do it? Will you let him drown, or will you save Hitler? That's always sort of the challenge for an ethical system, something extreme and silly like that. Well, you can't see anything, you can't judge that situation correctly, you can't have correct discernment if you are in judgment in that carnal sense. Because when you're judging something in that carnal sense, you're basing it on the past, what's happened to you in the past, which is no longer in that present moment. Okay? And you may think deterministically it is determining that present moment. But the past has nothing to do with what is happening right now. It is a ripple. The past is just a ripple in the boat moving forward, which means it's just sort of a sign, a wavy smoke signal that you can read for only a short time before it goes away altogether. That's a sign of what happened in the past, but has nothing to do with the acceleration of the boat going forward whatsoever. And so there's nothing in the past that's taking place here right now, but you're judging it. And if you're judging it in the past, egoically, of course, you're judging pain and suffering, and you're just trying to avoid pain and suffering that you've avoided, that you've seen in the past. So whatever person is approaching you, family or stranger, whatever situation you're in, you're constantly in fear because you're judging it by the pain and suffering that you've had in the past. Or else you're judging it about what you expect or you hope in the future, this idealism of what should be in the future. Of course, that's not real either. And so if you're constantly trying to live up to that expectation, then you're constantly going to be not only disappointed, but forget that. You can't see what's really happening in that scenario because you're too wound up in your emotional discord. Okay? You don't see what's happening there if you should save Hitler or not out of that water. Until you forgive him, you can't make a proper assessment of that situation. But the trick is when I say forgive it, I mean understand it, right? Is to empathize it, is to put yourself in those shoes, is to realize that everything is operating at a certain level of consciousness, maybe not your level. But when you start understanding the motivation of things, animals and humans, suddenly empathy takes place, and suddenly a higher understanding takes place, and suddenly, even in that situation, you can find optimism in the sense that you think you could probably turn it around. Put it this way, you try to go punish someone, and I don't care, they say 5% of us are sociopathic. I guess we'd have to challenge that, right? But for the 95% of us, and maybe all the 105% of us, you try to punish someone. For us that are competitive and love competitive sports, and we get that sweet revenge, that's the punishment we're looking for, right? But if you're any kind of real competitor and you have joy in your heart, integrity in the sport, right? Immediately you will think and empathize for your opponent because you've been there before, you've laid it on the floor, and you've hurt like them before, and you appreciate them hurting because it makes your success so much brighter. And you can cry and hug that person. All you could think about is, and you can't even think about your own joy, all you could think about is that other person's pain. That's a different level of consciousness. Humans thought like cats in the sense that, I've got a bunch of stray cats out there, and they all sort of, um, you know, they can kind of take posts around the yard and around the block, really. And basically, they're seeing through each other's eyes or through each other's uh, meows or however the heck they do it. I really think there's a lot of telepathy there. But it allows one cat to be able to monitor an entire block of danger. Okay? Do that, in a way that's not only secure for them, but is whatsoever. They don't know who's at the end of the chain or why they're getting that. Everyone's just like, okay, we're locked into each other. If humans could do that, if they could just lock into consciousness rather than judgment, imagine what that could do. How much ground we could cover. It's just another level. So, I don't think there is true epistemology. I don't think there is true discernment. And there's never true knowledge in your life without being able to forgive the situation first. Otherwise, you're just swimming in emotional and hormonal projection. And that's what you're judging. And that will lead you astray. That will lead to conflict. That will lead you away from peace.